Well, friends, here is the second excerpt from An American in Heaven, about to be re-released on February the 1st as an ebook. And it's a novel I wrote, I think, in 2004. It finally got published in 2009. And here we are now with the ebook. How time flies. One of the issues that Melanie has in her non-stop fun afterlife is coping with the family back home. And here's one of her ways of trying to deal with it. Anyway, let's move on before I get too happy. Wouldn't want that, would we? I might forget my duty to my grieving family. Dragged back into that house of horrors by my copiously weeping mother, I was doing duty by the sad bedside. I'd already tried holding her heaving shoulders and patting her softer than I'd realized curls, neither of which put the slightest dent in her self-pity. There, I've said it, finally. Not fair, you say. You selfish teenager, pissed that her parade's being rained on. Well, maybe. But look at it this way. I've met up with her, with my guide Sonia's help, early on when I didn't quite get the technique, when she was asleep, just like I do with Eric, and given her all the info she needs about my life now, and she acts all happy and grateful, as if I'd come back from college for the weekend. So, next time I drop in, she's back to wallowing in misery, usually in her bedroom, middle of the afternoon, sometimes with a side of wine, sometimes not, before the brothers return from whatever well-constructed lie they've engineered for the day. Then it's back to wrestling her out of sleep. Yeah, there's a technique for that too, and confronting her with the real me. I guess that sounds too impatient to be going on like this, but you have to see it from our point of view. One minute they're all happy and weepy and relieved, and the next they're writhing in a swamp of suicidal self-pity. It's like the worst kind of bipolar going. Come to think of it, I'm not exactly sure what bipolar means, but I bet you do. Maybe it's my payback for all that 13-year-old crap I put her through. I'll have to be honest. I was hormone crazy there for a while. Ran away twice, stole her money, jumped on a Greyhound, lied about going to see an aunt in Boston when the ticket guy asked. Wandered around, then took a cab to Faneuil Hall because I'd read about it in the New York Times magazine and started snacking. Guess my maturity act worked for a bit because they didn't suss me out till nighttime when a cop found me sleeping on a bench. Said I was lucky not to be raped or murdered. Took me in and made me call home. Anyways, there I am, helpless again as my mother rolls about in agony. I'm like, oh shit, what can I do? Almost in agony myself. Somebody taps me on the shoulder. I turn around. Somebody who looks a lot like Audrey Hepburn in the opening scene of Breakfast. You know, the hair, the dress, the works. Smiled at me and said, why don't you try your father's secretary? She can see you. I asked if she was Audrey or an angel dressed up as Audrey. I was so excited I was nearly jumping out of my skin. Audrey's like my all-time favourite heroine. Stupid as it sounds now, I tried like hell to be this goth version of her, all dark poise and dry humour. But she was neither Audrey nor an angel. She was just a guide who figured doing the breakfast thing would get my attention. I asked if she was a friend of Sonia's, you know, that guide girl, and she knew her, yes, but not really a friend. A colleague, maybe. So I had to accept that, didn't I? So we leave my room. No, we leave my mom's room, washing her face in the bathroom, and go looking for Andrea. Well, Andrea's doing her thing at work. I could have told her that, but what the heck? Maybe she knew something I didn't. But as we were hovering there, watching Andrea type up something from a tape, I thought, what does she know? Then, like it's a cue from the wings, she looks at her watch and begins to put things away and get ready to leave. I look at Audrey, and she winks at me. Nobody seems surprised to see Andrea leaving the office, and she nods and smiles at everyone as she passes by. She walks a few blocks, like she's in no hurry to get any place fast, and then into a restaurant, kind of an upscale diner place, nothing too fancy. She joins my dad at a table, and I'd have to say they seem pretty happy. What's that they say? Smiles light up their faces? Well, it's true. There was a kind of glimmery light about them. Of course, when you're a ghost like I am, everything has some kind of a glow. But when people are in love, they have a starry twinkle to them. But when people are in love, and you know about it, well, you know. And those two sure did. I didn't know whether to be envious or annoyed. Audrey draped her arm about my shoulders and whispered, "Have mercy on them. They're only adults." That worked. Calling them adults made them look like children. Don't ask me how, it just did. I already saw my mom as a child, so this was easier somehow. Part of me wanted to defend Mom, to shout, "How dare you at a time like this?" But another part just kind of watched and wondered where it was all going to lead. Not back to her apartment, as you might expect, but to a couple of drinks, some nachos with cheese and hot peppers, and some smiles and some shared laughs. Oh, and a hug and a kiss when they parted outside. Very sweet, like romantic lovers. I figured we'd be following Andrea home, and we did. Audrey, still in her amazing breakfast outfit, asked if I wanted to hightail it to the apartment and wait, or follow along. She looked as if following along was going to be more fun, don't know why, so I said, "Let's follow." Sure enough, she had something up her sleeve. She showed me how to walk through people, basically by saying, "Hey, check this out," and walking through a big burly guy like he wasn't there. Of course, it's us that aren't there to them, the real people. I was watching, and she just disappeared into him for the shortest of seconds, and then was there on the other side, grinning. Then I tried it. We were down at sidewalk level, so there was plenty of opportunity. I picked a woman with a bundle of shopping bags. Not a bag lady, but, a lady with bags. Shopaholic city. Shoot, it was easy. She felt like, I don't know, sand, grated cheese, some kind of Chex like that, like thick air if there is such a thing. And I sort of popped out the other side. I howled. Audrey grinned. It was so much fun I did it again. A guy in some weird outfit, then a knot of teens waiting to cross. That was even more fun. In and out, in and out, in and out. Audrey then surprised me by walking into the wall of a building. She just disappeared. I knew it was some kind of challenge, just as if she'd thrown down a gauntlet, so I walked behind her. Not thick air this time, just thick. Stuff packed more closely together. Kind of panicked in the middle there, thought I was going to get stuck, but a hand appeared and pulled me through, and I was through. Audrey, of course, she'd sussed out that I was having trouble. "I'm a guide," she smirked. "I know everything." We were in a big department store, so we wandered about checking out clothes and jewellery. Nice stuff, too. Although we got lots of nice stuff where I live now. So we get to Andrea's place, and it's a bit like before, except she does a few chores first. When she sits down to meditate, we know it won't be long. Sure enough, she comes floating up out of her body and sees us. I'm about to introduce Audrey, but Andrea gets the outfit right away and says, "Breakfast at Tiffany's, right?" A little bit of chit-chat, and then I tell her about Mom, and she can do something. Can she do something? Anything. Get it across so that she won't be so down all the time. She says she'll try, but that her memories, when in the body, are like, really vague. Like she knows I'm okay, but not really enough detail about why and where to convince anyone. She's tried it with my dad a few times, and he's like, he wants to believe, but he keeps having these nagging doubts. When I try him at night, he never seems to come out of his body at all. Sonia says some people are just like that. Some float up out of their bodies but still stay asleep, just about 3 feet above, doing the hover, she calls it. Audrey suggests to Andrea that we do something a little wacky so she'll remember it. She thinks that sounds like fun, and so do I. But then we get into this thing like, okay, what? And we stand about like none of us have ever had an idea before. Finally, Audrey says, why don't you dance with her? Andrea says, let's make some costumes. Great. Then she looks at me and says, you want to be the guy? As I'm thinking that one over, she suddenly does this like antebellum Southern belle from Charleston or Savannah. So I got to be this Confederate captain guy. I can't get all the details of the uniform right, so Audrey helps me. You know, all that stuff about just thinking, it's true, but you got to practice. At the last minute, we shrink my hair to the right level, and Audrey whips out a mirror for me. Amazing. Like me in a uniform. I start singing that old Gang of Four song, I Love a Man in Uniform. Way before my time, but Eric's like connected to some serious collector types and gets burns of all this great old shit. And twirling about, chuckles all round. Andrea's really done a number. A giant fuchsia flouncy billowy thing and lustrous black hair with a big time design job that would have taken hours to style in its day. That's the neat thing about here. You can imagine stuff and want it, and then it's there. Or mostly there. I had this half-assed idea of a Confederate uniform, so a half-assed uniform was what I got until Audrey sorted it out. So we begin this pretty good fake waltzing about to this old-timey waltz music that I bet Audrey whipped up out of nowhere. Guides are like that. They know all the tricks. It was fun twirling around gracefully. Andrea did the leading. She obviously knew the steps. I'd just seen it done in movies and kind of went with the flow. It was neat being a guy for a while, but in the end I had this inspiration. I suddenly turned into my old goth girl outfit and stuck my tongue out. Andrea broke out of her refined Southern belle thing and squealed. I was proud of my little contribution and took a bow. And then remembering who I looked like, a curtsy. Mega applause. Andrea says something about her meditation ending and says au revoir with a grin. We watch her settle back into her body, an almost imperceptible shiver and her eyes open. She yawns and shakes her head. Our job is done. I don't know what we're watching for. Then Andrea stands up and walks over to a table and picks up a notebook and pen and starts to scribble. Audrey smiles and nods, as if to say, see? 5 minutes later, she's checking a number and dialing. Oh my God, she's talking to my mom. She apologizes for disturbing her at supper and says she'll just had to tell her about this dream she just had about me. Dancing with me around and around, except I was dressed as a soldier. But at the end, I suddenly became my old self and started laughing. Audrey looks at me and says, let's go check it out. She grabs my hand and we reappear at my house. Mom's holding the phone and staring out the kitchen window into the backyard and saying stuff like, how can you be so sure? I think to her this is Dad's secretary telling her she has had a dream about me. Dad's secretary who only met me like about twice. She's thinking, why would I appear to Andrea in a dream and not her? I shout like so impatient, just like I always was with her. Mom, I come to you all the time, but you don't remember. Get a life. Of course, it does no good. She can't hear me, but Audrey does, and she shushes me like, there's no point. Calm down. She's right. I know from 100 times before. You can stomp and shout and wail, and living people just don't get it. They're grievers, and like my buddy Clint says, and they want their version of what's happened. They don't want yours. It's like they don't want you to be happy, he says. They want you to be all fucked up and miserable like they are. And I tell you, there's times when I agree with them. So my mom thanks Andrea for taking the time to call and says goodbye. Then she walks up to my dad's study where he's going over some papers or something and tells him the story. His eyes widen and he says, "What do you think? Sounds like Major Mel, no?" My mom grins and says, "Yeah, it sure does." Turns around and walks away. Then calls, "Dinner's nearly ready," when she's going down the stairs past the boys' bedroom, so they'll hear too. I look at Audrey and say, "Thanks for all your help." She smiles, still in her breakfast outfit, and says, "Sure, no problem. Love to help when I can. You going back to your place?" I say, "Yeah, I guess. Not much more to do here, I suppose." She blows me a kiss. "Okay then, see ya." And she's like, poof, gone. Guides are so darn cool, I tell you. The ups and downs of Melanie in the afterlife. And, there's more. There's always more. We'll talk again soon. Ooh, did you like that? That was good.